Parents in the U.S. are overwhelmed with the dizzying pace of the world, and now it's becoming a public health concern. That's according to a new advisory from the U.S. Surgeon General, citing a survey from last year. Researchers found that a third of parents reported high levels of stress in the past month, compared to 20% of other adults. The advisory describes how parents are now spending many more hours on both work and primary child care. The demands have come at the cost of quality time with one's partner, sleep, and parental leisure time. To help us break down this public health issue and provide tips to cope with that stress is Dr. Kat Lewitsky, a psychologist and director of Bright Pine Behavioral Health. Thanks for being on with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a mom and I'm a working mom. So when I heard this and I read this, I could personally relate to it on so many different levels, both personally as a mom and then professionally working as a psychologist too.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to this. So let's go ahead and start with your initial reaction to this new advisory. What stood out to you?
Yeah, something that Murthy said in the advisory was that the well-being of the parents and caregivers is directly impacted on the child as well. And so we can see this as well when you have 70 to 72% of moms who are working right now, and then it's about 92% of dads who are working at full time, right? What that means is that you're away from your kids all day, and when it's school, a typical school day doesn't match what a typical work day is. So how stressful is that as a parent? When you're waking up in the morning and you have to be at work on time, you're financially have to provide for your family, and that stress of having to get your child out the door, get your child there in time, and then drag yourself to work, and then you're there past typically those school hours. The typical workday for most working parents ends at 5, but it's much earlier for the children. So then by the time you go pick your kids up, eat dinner, you go to bed, it reminds me like of that Home Alone movie in that morning with like the music playing and it's very chaotic. That's typical morning, I think, for most parents. At least even in our home, we try to stay organized, but it can be really stressful, and all these demands that we have of working and trying to find that balance of working and also being a parent too, and having that pressure financially, and it does weigh heavily on your relationships with others, relationship within the family, and it's like a domino effect of how it's related to everything else within the system.
I think a lot of parents can relate to maybe they work a 9 to 5, they get home at 6, the kids go to bed at 8:30. You have those couple hours of precious time during the week, but you also feel like you're trying to cross off your to-do list, and you may exhibit that stress behavior. If a parent is doing that, how can it negatively affect their children? Can it be passed on? What are the signs there?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And oftentimes, when the child's feeling that stress, they start exhibiting some behavioral issues. So what we call it's called excitation transfer. So you think about the word excitation. You're excited, meaning your anxiety is heightened because of the stress at work. It's hard to leave things like at the office, right? Or even if you're stuck in traffic and then you're delayed picking your child up, that can cause stress, right? This heightened arousal. And then you're unconsciously then taking it out on your children. You're going to be shorter with them, more stressed out. You may want to disassociate and then, just aimlessly scroll on social media. And so it's going to be affecting a lot of factors, and your child's going to feel that. And it's not purposely that parents are doing this. They're not purposely trying to be short with their kids or purposely trying to be anxious or act out on them or disassociate from them. But this is just what you see. And then the child may then start acting out because then they're picking up on some of those anxiety, some of those behaviors. They might become more withdrawn or act out. And then what happens is when we see children come into our office, we then have to address the whole family as a system to see what is actually going on, and then how can the family work out some type of organization within the home, because we do see that happening a lot with parents trying to balance this act of being rock star at work, rock star at home, and it's really hard because you're constantly going, and you just don't have that break.
Absolutely. I know the Surgeon General kind of mentioned the need for a culture shift, whether that be in more family time, help with child care assistance. So hopefully these conversations help as well. Dr. Kat Lewitsky, thank you so much for your insight on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.